there are probably 0 people watching, but Charlie, it's good to see you.
It's so good to see you. It's been like a week.
Yeah. So hopefully this is working. We've had some technical difficulties, and that's why we're 2 minutes late coming on board here. But we got a ton of questions up front about questions people had, and we are ready to start answering some of these. But oh God, it's working. I can see.
It's working.
All right.
I'm going to get back to someone who messaged us. I think they should be able to see it now.
Yeah, there are 3 people watching, and that means you and me and your mom. So hi, Garland.
Hi, Mom.
Okay, so first things first. I hope everybody is doing well at home. We are self-quarantining like everybody else, and we are trying to figure out different ways to keep this community connected. We're not seeing people in the gym. Brian Koisman, how are you? Good to see you. Not see you, but hear from you. We've been hammering a lot of questions, and so if you guys post up questions on the feed, we'll answer them. But we also have a ton queued up, and so it's going to take us way more than a half hour to do this. And so hopefully Charlie and I can answer enough questions that we keep you interested for the next 30 minutes. So
yeah, we have enough from now until noon tomorrow.
What about
do you want to start with that first, the hangboard? I think it's a really good question because not having Chris asked about warming up for a hangboard session without a climbing gym, and I actually kind of hate that. And Steve had some info on that.
Oh yeah, so the way you hang up, well, the way that you warm up for a hangboard session is to think of it in 2 phases. And so you're at home, you've got nothing but, let's just assume you've got nothing but your body weight and the board. And when we do a hangboard warm up at home, one of the main things to remember is that you're probably not going to be loading it up with a ton of weight. You're not going to be going super intense for a little bit of time. You got a lot of bandwidth for general warm up. And so one of the things we'll do is push-ups and squats, and to alternate between those 2 things, do a few push-ups, stand up, do a few squats, push-ups, squats. And actually the act of going down into that plank position and then back up gets you a good general warm up. And we don't have to worry about like the push-ups and squats as a workout. We're just trying to get you warm. One of the other things that I'll do, because of the position of my hangboard in my home, is I can just walk up and down the stairs and then come do my push-ups and squats, walk up and down the stairs, push-ups and squats. And you want to spend 5 to 10 minutes doing that. Generally, I will do that until I feel like I want to take off my sweatshirt, until my body is actually warmed up. And then we'll go ahead and do like a 1 second hang on a big edge, like whatever the biggest edge on your board is. 1 second hang, step down, then 2, step down, 3, step down, and go all the way to 10 seconds. And once you're through that thing, you can probably start into your workout. And so I really like that. And we actually have a YouTube video that is a hangboard warm up. And I'll post that link up.
I'm going to post it in the comments.
Okay, perfect. The next question we've got is from Emmett, and Emmett was asking about any advice on how to proceed after a big performance day that leaves me sore for 3 or even 4 days and generally worn out. These are big days where I give it all, and I notice it's hard to get back on track. For me, this happens in the heart of climbing season after some climbing competitions, big days or trips. And so what we'll end up with in a situation like that is probably a lack of capacity in that athlete. And so then when we when we are looking at that athlete's training, if you have a performance day that ends up leaving you sore or super duper tired, you're going to end up needing to work on general capacity instead. And it's not about adding more and more intensity. It's, can I go and walk for 60 minutes a day? Can I train at all for a certain amount of time in that week? Because if you have one event that makes you so wrecked that you can't train, it shows us that you don't have the basic capacity to do that. And we might talk about strength training and power and all that, but it's pretty likely that you don't even have the capacity for that. And it seems kind of funny because you can be a high performing athlete, but not actually have the ability to maintain that high level of performance. And it starts at the basement. Just get general exercise in for your desired amount of training time, and then slowly increase that exercise. But a highly trained or well-conditioned athlete probably can do 3 hard sessions a week without feeling tremendously sore or tired afterwards. And the way we get there is general conditioning, general strength, and slowly building that stuff up.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, some other people have been asking, like Peter and Lauren are talking a little bit about like mixing different hangboard protocols to kind of make up for maybe the lack of climbing that they're not able to do right now. Like everyone's either stuck at home because their climbing gyms are closed, and also potentially not even able to go out to some crags because of the crowds that are kind of gathering around cliffs, and we just are trying to all do our part to kind of stay away from each other. And I think what's really important is if you want to see, we still have to understand like that the basic rules still apply. We still like want to have some sort of adaptation that we want and carry it through, rather than trying to juggle all the things that we feel like we're losing control with. And I've been working with a lot of athletes recently here, just since this whole thing broke down and came out, and we're all dealing with ourselves. We can't make up the climbing lost on the hangboard. It's just not possible. Like, it's not ideal. It's not great. A lot of us will come out of this thing not as fit as we really wish we could be, or maybe as fit as we would be if our normal training plan would be carrying out and the climbing gyms were open and we're all, if Steve was in Greece and I was, up at Sinks all the time like I normally am, it's just not going to happen. And so I think just focusing in on what you want to see happen in your hangboard protocol. And I think when we're talking about like hunkering down and doing like program minimums here, the conditioning that we're all worried about losing can kind of tail off. It's going to have to. And really we can work on the basis of continuing our strength or making our strength go even further. Depending on where people have come in from their training cycles, like some people are maybe coming off a performance phase, some people may be ramping up for the summer, depending on what your goals were. Sticking with a relatively cohesive hangboard program is kind of the way to go to see the adaptation you're actually looking for, rather than kind of scrambling all the different pieces where it's like max hangs and then repeaters, and then I'm going to do like these duration hangs. I think you're best off picking one and kind of going the distance with it, but probably prioritizing strength here on the hangboard. Our fingers can only handle so much. It's not like doing arc training on an auto belay. So just being mindful of making sure you're all like letting yourself like be mad that the climbing gyms are closed and be upset this is not part of the plan, but understanding that we can't just make hangboards all of a sudden work for our climbing. Yeah.
Well, and one thing to kind of spin off of what Charlie just said is most of us are interested in performance most of the time. And so even when we're in a training phase, we're always resting to go, red point, or we're thinking about getting our endurance up while we're building our strength. And so right now is a tremendous opportunity to actually work on, one or two really super focused qualities. You can say like, okay, I really, really want to work on my finger strength. And this is your opportunity. This is the thing that we've stripped away all of the noise in your life. And we can now just go like, I'm going to work on getting my fingers just a little bit stronger. You can also work on your mobility. You can work on your general conditioning. It's like I talked about in that last question. Most of the climbers that we see in the gyms these days have really crappy general conditioning. And you can go out and go for a walk. You can walk up and down your stairs. You can do your mobility. I mean, what about trying to get to where you can do the splits? What about actually trying to improve your shoulder mobility? Because you have to. You've talked about fixing it for years and years. Well, now's that opportunity. The thing to remember is that right now is the new normal. And, our gym is supposedly going to be closed for the next 2 weeks, but it could be closed for 2 months, or it could be closed for the rest of time. And a really, really important thing to consider is this isn't the crappy alternative to your reality. This is your reality. And if you just decide to take, I'm just going to take the next 6 months off and turn into a lump, you're sacrificing lifetime. And every one of these days is just as valuable as the days you had in the climbing gym and the days that you're going to have at the crag in the future. But focusing on what happened back then or what's going to happen in the future steals the present from you. And that's really, really important that you go, okay, what am I going to do today to be better today? And so that's a really critical thing. And whether it's, repeaters or, max hangs or single arm hangs or whatever, the fact that you're actually trying to move forward instead of just trying to hang on is going to be really, really critical to your progress.
Yeah, I mean, I know I struggle with that right now, and I don't want to accept it as my new normal, but we're all slowly hunkering down into what is actually happening, and you just have to do whatever you can to hold your strength for the future. Yeah, Brian asked. It's a good point to Brian's question was, what's the absolute best way to train at home while gyms and crags are closed? Talk about not having a home wall or having a home wall, not having a hangboard, having a hangboard. And I think that really what Steve just said speaks to that. Like, if you have an 8x8 section of your room and you have zero equipment, you can still train. Some people have home walls and dumbbells and barbells and hangboards and stuff. Like, yeah, they're set up maybe a little bit better than most, but you don't have to have those things to continue to train. And if some of you are listening right now and you want to, for the next 4 weeks, do 2 or 3 days a week of like pistol squats, push-ups, and like maybe some sort of glute bridge, that is better than nothing. Yes, it sounds like a really easy program, but remember, simple doesn't mean easy. So if I just tell you to do like some squats, some glute bridge, and some push-ups, you can make that really easy, and you're like, oh, well, geez, that was 5 minutes. Charlie doesn't know what he's talking about. I didn't feel very hard. Make it harder by adding load, like pick up your cat, pick up a lamp, pick up a water bottle, hold tension a little bit longer. That makes it a little bit harder. Make it a one-arm push-up instead of a regular push-up. Like, you have to be creative. All of you have to be creative. Think of it like MacGyvering your workout to make it work for you, and then do what you can as far as, people are still selling hangboards and people can still buy kettlebells. You can start to invest into your future for, however long this is going to be, but you don't have to have those tools to continue your training.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think about progress too. Like, you can say, like, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, 10 squats, and 10 sit-ups. But what you really need to do is make sure that you're either progressing the difficulty of the movement by making it more complex, so you can't add load. I mean, the easy thing is to put more weight on yourself, but make it into a single arm push-up, make it into a more difficult version of the sit-up. You can increase complexity. You can also increase the endurance involved by increasing the number of reps. You can also increase the capacity that you're asking your body to have by asking for more sets. The thing is unless you're stressing your system, your body won't adapt, right? If it's the analogy we've always used is like, if you keep reading the same, 4th grade level book, you don't become a better reader. You don't become better educated. And so keep pushing those things. And there's a ton of free resources on workouts. But remember that a workout, whatever anybody is posting up, we're doing some on the Elemental YouTube and on the Climb Strong YouTube. Those are just meals. Those are just little tiny things that are happening. You need to think about the entire diet. You got to think all of this long-term stuff. But if you set up a training plan right now that's going to push you 4 or 6 or 8 weeks into the future, give yourself something you're really trying to reach, like a 1-arm pull-up, or being able to do 100 push-ups in a row, or getting to where you can hit a new personal best on the pull-up bar. And don't come up with excuses. It is so easy right now. You have a ton of time to train. You don't have to commute around and go to work and all these other things. It's a crazy, crazy world, but you have more time for this. Just don't pour your time into some ridiculous stuff like more television or just sitting around doing nothing more, right? We've got to think about how we can get better and how we can be of service to ourselves and our families during this time.
Yeah, and I think too, Steve, what you were saying there, we see this in classes or with our athletes we coach where, some of you might be using weight and maybe you're pressing a 25-pound kettlebell and you feel like you're getting close to being able to press the 30 in your own workout, but you're not quite there yet or it feels too hard. Remember, like Steve said, you can add volume to your training. So say you're doing 3 sets of 5, maybe you can work up to 3 sets of 8, maybe even a little bit more. But once you get to a few reps more than, say, that 5 kind of magic zone, then you can start to work on your 30-pounder maybe at 3 reps and then slowly work out. Like that plays out, I said that in 5 seconds, but that plays out maybe in like 8 weeks. So folks can do those things for a really long time. Don't just say, all right, I did my at-home workout, I'm going to look for a new one tomorrow. Really take it the full distance. And the same thing goes for those bodyweight exercises. There's regressions and progressions on either end of those things. There might be kind of like an anchor, say like an anchor exercise like the air squat. But if that doesn't work for you, you're going to be assisting it or doing some split squat variations. If the air squat feels too damn easy, you're going to add weight, you're going to do single leg stuff. Just think about where you are, where you need to be, and then how you can progress or regress. And I don't know if you want to tackle this one. Climbing coach Bradley. Hi, Brad. I hope you're all well there, North Carolina. He asked, how long are off seasons for major professional sports? What do professional athletes do as far as non-specific sport work that climbers can learn from? Is this an opportunity to take advantage of non-specific strength?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And Brad and I have talked a fair bit about how other sports training applies to climbing. And one of the problems that we have is we always are wanting to perform. We're like, man, I'm going to be sitting at my limit 8 months a year, 10 months a year. But taking big breaks from the sport and addressing those weaknesses is really important. And so in a major off season, let's say a pro sport, off season is usually now 3 to 4 months. If we're talking basketball, professional football. And so when we look at that 3 to 4 months, that's not a lot of time. So what we try to do is increase the quality of connective tissue, work on imbalances, and we try to reduce injuries. And so think about that right now. Like, what's the nagging thing that you've been dealing with? Now's a really good time to address the imbalance that's been causing your elbow tendonitis, or get rid of that injury in your finger. And then let's create some better balance and some better connective tissue. We can do a whole bunch of stuff with isometrics and static holds. If you guys don't follow Tyler Nelson on Instagram, you really should, because he's got really great forward-thinking stuff on this. And what we can do is isometric holds. You can do slow movements. You don't have to just be thinking like down, up, down, up, down, up. One of the things people lack is local muscular endurance. And so one of the things you might try is slow tempo exercises. And so it's a 2-second lower and a 2-second up on like a push-up. So it's a 4-second rep. No stopping at the top, no stopping at the bottom. And try to do maybe 10 reps of that, just nice and slow. So 40 seconds. You can get a metronome app for your phone and it'll just kick off those seconds, and you'll realize how long 2 seconds is as you go slowly into this push up and back. You can do it with squats, you can do it with pull-ups, and it'll teach you to go outside your normal pace. And these are all things that need to happen in the off season, so that then when we come firing back, we can come in and we can train at or perform at multiple different speeds and qualities. Charlie, Chris, how's it going? Chris from Canada chiming in. What do you recommend for youth climbers to keep finger strength up, but who probably shouldn't be doing a ton of hangboard work due to their young ages and growth plates not closed yet, right? So what would you say to that, Charlie?
Chris, I want to say I almost got stuck in Canada when this whole thing hit. So I'm sorry that I'm not with you in back in the home country there. I got to have some Smarties before I left, though. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Chris. I mean, I think a lot of these athletes are kind of coming off of these performance phases anyways. I know for some of these young competitors, we're looking to be in competitions this spring and then even this summer, and who knows what that's going to look like. I think for youth competitors, I think it's an opportunity for them to start learning basic movement patterns, to actually start to progress those as they get older. I think, I don't know if you'd be have to be totally scared of them not hanging on their fingers, because they're hanging on their fingers all the time when they're climbing anyways. I think max hangs and really specialty type hangboard protocols might not be the path for them. But since they're not climbing or they don't have access to a climbing gym, a very, very simple hangboard protocol actually might be pretty good for them, and something they're used to anyways, because they're on boulders or routes for longer than any hangboard session anyways. So I think just making sure they're not trying to make up for their lack of climbing by adding a bunch of load or doing 5 hangboard sessions in a day, or 20 in a week. We know those young athletes are hungry and they want to climb, and they know how their fingers are supposed to feel after a climbing session. We don't want them to think about how that's going to feel after a hangboard session. So I think the basics of how to move, hinge, press, squat, pull, honestly, really focusing on the hinge and the squat, that's really hard to teach that for youth competitors. Their body awareness isn't as good as older athletes. But I think totally they should be hanging on their fingers, but again, not at a too prescriptive set.
I'm gonna add to what Charlie said there. One of the things that people really lose is that anything over about 70% of your max ability in any exercise, anything over 70% of your max hang is going to be a strength stimulus. And so if I can max hang, say 2 hands, body weight plus added load, 250 pounds, 70% of that is a very, very low number. That's less than my body weight, right? And so I can go back and do just body weight training on a large edge and still get some kind of strength stimulus. And so one of the big keys, Chris, and everybody else, would be to cycle that and say okay, you're only doing 1 circuit of your hangboard stuff on Monday. We'll do 3 circuits on Wednesday, and then just 2 circuits on Friday. And so that we're varying the load and volume over the course of the week. And as long as we're able to stimulate any kind of load on those fingers, we're going to see strength improvements. And that's especially true for isometric loading and with the fingers, because we're real interested in the tissue quality and in the tendon strength and all those sorts of things. And so that sort of plays into what Brian mentions here in the next comment is, our fingers can only take so much. Brian's a relatively strong climber, so he might not have to take more time off than normal, but if he's just hangboarding now and he wants to alternate between max hangs and repeaters, that's probably okay. But a big increase in your volume of just finger specific training is probably going to result in an injury, and having an injury right now would really suck. And so I would say, if you said, okay, I'm only going to do 3 days a week, and I'm going to go hang max hangs, then I'm going to do repeaters, then I'm going to do max hangs, and then the following week I start with repeaters and then do max hangs and repeaters, and so we're just alternating between those two. Go 2 to 3 weeks and see how things feel. But the most important thing is to test yourself. how much can you do right now, and how much can you do after the training? It doesn't matter how much training you do. What matters is that you got stronger, right? What really matters is that the training you did produced the result you wanted. And what we really, really want is not to see how much training we can fit in, but how much training we can do without and still achieve the best results. Okay, dude, it's 12:28.
I was gonna say a couple things and then add in one more thing, but Brian, I did want to say I think you're like Steve said, you're absolutely like clear to try that or to do that, being careful how much volume you're putting in. But I think maybe what our point was in the beginning was like this is an opportunity to actually take your strength. Like you're not climbing, so you're not gonna want to kind of rest for some performance phase. And what's really crazy is like these transient factors like muscular endurance or the power endurance or strength endurance. We don't know when we're going to go be able to have a red point phase or a performance phase right now. Like it might be 2 weeks from now, it might be 6 months from now. And so not that you're necessarily wasting training time, but it might be training time that you might not even be able to use for who knows how long. And we know strength is a persistent factor, and strength is that base for the stuff that we're going to put on top once we know we're going to get, or once we know when we're going to get out of this thing. So just thinking about what your training is going to look like, we really don't know. And strength is kind of that like thing you're always doing, and it's kind of where we're all at right now. I was gonna say, Steve, we're gonna cut off here and for 30 minutes, and maybe do you want to say we'll do this like in a week or something? We'll post about it.
Yeah, this is going to happen again next Tuesday at 12, and we may schedule a little bit more time. I know all of you guys are just as busy as we are, so maybe we'll do it for 6 hours. No, we're gonna go 30 minutes again next Tuesday, so you can send us questions via our Climb Strong Facebook page. You can send them via Instagram, but we will try to get to more of the questions and go a little bit deeper, and hopefully we can keep us going for a very short time and everything returns to normal. But if it doesn't, we'll keep doing it because I know there's a ton of questions, and we would like to spend as much time as possible helping you guys out. Thanks so much. Appreciate you all joining us, and we will talk to you next week.
And real quick, I'll add in the comments here on the video so you guys can see after we get off. I'll add in the hangboard warm-up for just when you have a hangboard, the link to hangboard protocols that you can see or purchase on Climb Strong. And then real soon, in like the next few days, maybe as at the most a week, we're going to send out a bodyweight at-home strength PDF that Alex Bridgewater and Catherine Perkins have been working super hard on. So start to look out for those things for resources for you guys all to start use.
All right. Thanks.
Take care, guys. Stay healthy.